You can't tell me that when you're snuggled up and you're just knitting in the round and you're doing your raglan increases and you're just, cruising along, you're watching your show, and then it's like, time for splitting for sleeves. You're not taking your blanket off, changing out of your jammies. You're not taking off your sweatshirt and trying this stupid thing on. You're not doing it. I'm not doing it.
I'm Nora, and this is also known as Nora Knits.
Hi, I'm Nora, and you're watching also known as Nora Knits. Thanks so much for joining me on my podcast episode today. As you can see, we've got a particularly spooky episode. I just wanted to say a big thank you to anyone who's been watching, and if you're joining us for the first time today, welcome. I'm Nora. I'm coming to you from a small farm in Connecticut, and I've been knitting since January 1st of this year, 2023, and I have just been loving every second of it since I picked up the craft, and I wanted to share that with you. So thanks so much for watching. If you like what you see here, you could definitely also follow me over on Instagram at aka Nora Knits. And that's all I got for you for intro today. Let's just dive right in because I'm really excited about what I have to talk about. So hope you guys like the spooky setup. And yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into it today. I'd like to start out with my whips as per usual. And the first one that I'm going to talk about today is the one that's been on the needles the longest, and that is my Cor Shavan cardigan by Tanya Hodney. So here we have Miss Cor Shavan cardigan. She's officially in Aladdin vest status. It took us a little while to get here, a little bit longer than I would have thought that it would, but that's okay. We are officially here now, and I did decide, in full disclosure, I whipped this out at the very last second. So I did the 3-needle bind off at 2 o'clock this morning, and then I picked up the stitches for one of the sleeves at 9 o'clock this morning because I wanted to make sure that I reached my goal this week because I didn't like not reaching my goal last week. So this week I went ahead and I just kind of used that. It was good motivation to just go ahead and get those things done that aren't the most fun to get done. It's a 3-needle bind off to attach the front panels to the back panel, which creates the armholes for you in this cardigan. And then you can see that I have my needles in the sleeve hole on this side. And that is where I have picked up the stitches, and I have so far, I knit through one basket weave of that sleeve just to say that I did it. So this is still going strong. She's still working her way to cardigan status. You guys have been really great with recommendations for the double knit button band that I'm hoping to do. So some of the recommendations that I've received that I've looked into already are by Florence. Handmade by Florence. She has a double knit button band tutorial. A lot of you recommended, I believe it was a champagne cardigan from Petite Knit. That pattern includes a great tutorial or instructions apparently on a double knit button band, as well as the most recently published was, I think it's pronounced Kutova Kika. And I'm gonna link it and put it on the screen here so that you could see, but she has a new cardigan pattern, the Darling cardigan, and released a full tutorial video to accompany the pattern on her YouTube channel where you can see a full tutorial on how she does the double knit button band. So I already just started watching some of those, kind of doing some research preparation. I'm thinking right now that I'm going to get through a sleeve. I'll probably knit my sleeve through to the cuff. So before I start the cuff, I'll either pick up for the other sleeve or I'll just start the button band depending on what I'm feeling. Everyone's been saying, oh, good luck with that. Apparently it's just a long, tedious process, but guys, I knit a stockinette dress on 3mm needles. Long and tedious are things that I'm not afraid of. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. So while my momentum was still here with this texture, I just went ahead and picked up the sleeve. It's kind of fun, when you've been knitting back and forth on a cardigan, and then you finally get to a sleeve and you're just working in the round in that small circumference. It's a little bit comforting, and it's kind of nice to have that change up. So I was pretty excited to get into that anyway. So I went ahead and just started with the sleeve literally this morning. I'm sure by next week, I don't even know what to expect. I don't even know what to expect for next week, because this has been on the back burner as my other projects have just been a little bit more pressing. I am so excited to own this, however. I think that this is going to be, pardon you, good? I think that this is going to be such a staple in my wardrobe, and I'm really excited to put my antler buttons on it, which is maybe why I want to skip ahead to the double knit button band, but I'll put it off for a little bit. Maybe that'll just help me see this through to the end. And in the meantime, that's where this is at. There's really not much to say about it other than, we're working on the Cor Shavan cardigan. If there was anything that I forgot to mention on that one, it really is just that I'm loving working with 100% wool. I've mentioned before that I haven't really done that before. I really like how bouncy this particular wool is. I like how the stitches do kind of grip and hold on to each other. The first sweater that I ever knit was in cotton. I remember having to frog part of it and just losing stitches and things getting really chaotic. So I've kind of just enjoyed the simplicity of working with wool. And so if you're someone who has never worked with wool, but you have an interest in it, I highly recommend checking out this brand in particular, the Fisherman's Wool by Lion Brand. It's been really, really great to work with. Just as far as the texture and the squishiness, and I don't find it to be particularly itchy, and all of that is before blocking. So I imagine with blocking, it can only get better. So those are my thoughts on the yarn too. Okay, so the next project that I'm excited to talk about here is my Ranunculus sweater by Midori Hirose. This has been the ultimate saga. You guys know we've had our ups and downs, this Ranunculus and me. But for now, we are having a good time together. And that is probably because we were just stockinette in the round. However, and I mentioned last week that I am using Malabrigo Sussurro in the color Frank Ochre. And you all actually reminded me that I should be helical knitting with this yarn. And I hadn't done that before. Nor did I think, looking at the skeins on their own, that they were so starkly different that it had to be done throughout this sweater. Rather, I figured I would just blend the end of one skein into the beginning of another for as much as was comfortable. And I also thought I wasn't going to worry about it at all until I finished the yoke. There was no way I wanted to try helical knitting with all of that lace work anyway, so we didn't do that. But I'm happy to report that I tried helical knitting for the first time, and so everyone just mentions helical knitting like that's something that you're supposed to know, and I really didn't know what it meant. It sounded really scary. But there's plenty of tutorials out there. I will link the ones that I used and that I found the most helpful. But essentially, all you're doing, if you've never done helical knitting before and it sounds scary to you, all you're doing is you're working from two separate skeins of yarn. And as far as what I've learned, this could be done for striping, but also, and more commonly used, for making sure that your hand-dyed yarns, or even your just regular dyed yarns, are blended seamlessly together so that you don't get a big chunk of color blocking from different dyed skeins. So you add in your second skein of yarn and you knit in the round. And when you see that you are 3 stitches from where your previous skein of yarn is hanging, you slip those 3 stitches and then just pick up that other skein of yarn, that other strand, and keep knitting. And you just keep doing that. There's nothing scary. There's no new technique. It's all things you've done before. So I did it. I feel like I was successful. There is one funky thing that happened wherever I had started doing the helical knitting. I actually think I either dropped a stitch or I think I pulled my new yarn too tight. And so it looks like the tension is just off a little bit. But that's okay. I'd love for you as a knitter, as a maker, to welcome this philosophy into your life too, that when you're making something with your hands, there's human error all over the place, all over the place. And I think it's okay to welcome that idea that the imperfections are what makes something so perfectly handmade. And that's not to say that when you realize that you skipped a few rows in your knitting, you shouldn't go back and fix that. If you want to, you certainly can. I'm saying if your finishes aren't perfect, if you dropped a stitch here or there, if you accidentally purled when it should have been a knit, I mean, that's okay. You've just labeled that product as handmade, and I see absolutely nothing wrong with that. So try not to get too down on yourself when it comes to those little mistakes or those little imperfections, especially because no one's going to see them. Only you. You're the only one who's ever going to notice those things. And most things can be solved with weaving in ends to kind of repair something, duplicate stitching over something. I haven't tried that yet, but I know a lot of people recommend that to fix little errors here and there. So I just want to make sure that we're all knitting for the love of knitting. And if something so insignificant like a little gap in stitches shows up, it's just a good reminder that it's handmade. So that was okay with me. If I were to give some advice for helical knitting, if you haven't tried it before, is just try to be cognizant of where you're at when you decide to add in that extra skein of yarn, so that if you're having any funny little jogs or things or changes in tension, hopefully maybe you could tuck it under the arm or certainly in the back. I wouldn't start your helical knitting right on the center front, because it might end in disaster. But really, it's okay. I didn't have a problem with it at all. The only issue that I had was that it took me out of the flow of my stockinette, because I had to constantly be aware of like, when are those 3 stitches coming up? And the amount of times that I knit right past them and then had to, tink back. So I did that way more times than once, but it was pretty seamless, pretty easy peasy. Looking at it right now, don't see any stark differences in my dye lots, so that's good, but I'm glad that I took the extra precaution. And when I go to add in the third skein, I will do the same thing. I will continue with the helical knitting. So this has still just been my stockinette in the round project. We're knitting in the round. That's what this is. This is who she needs to be right now. She is my stockinette in the round project. And I don't imagine myself getting sick of that anytime soon. But if I do, I'll pick up a sleeve and we'll shake things up. But for now, she is stockinette in the round. I did learn something new with, when I split for my sleeves, I learned the cable cast on? Yeah, so I learned how to do the cable cast on for the pickup for the sleeves. I think anytime I see something other than a literal long tail cast on, I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know how to do that. What do I do? And it was easy. It was simple, super simple. I think it was like, I don't know, a little bit of a learning curve. Is that the one? Did I have to use a crochet hook? I think that's what is happening there. Honestly, it feels like I haven't worked on this in so long. I've been so hyper-focused on my test knit that this has almost completely just left my brain. I don't even remember what I was doing last, but I know I hadn't split for the sleeves because I made these really bold claims like, I'm going to try this on all throughout the process. And I didn't do that. I haven't tried this on since it was on the last time I filmed. Oops. Like, I know I'm going to regret it. I know I am. If it doesn't fit. If it fits, I'm not going to regret it. But if it doesn't fit, I'm going to regret it. But you can't tell me that when you're snuggled up and you're just knitting in the rounds and you're doing your raglan increases and you're just, cruising along, you're watching your show, and then it's like, time for splitting for sleeves. You're not taking your blanket off, changing out of your jammies. You're not taking off your sweatshirt and trying this stupid thing on. You're not doing it. I'm not doing it. So I didn't do it. Sue me. Sue me. I didn't try it on, okay? Come after me. I just trusted my math. I trusted my math and I trusted the pattern. And it felt like a problem for later me. I know. I should have tried it on. I didn't try it on. We could try it on and you guys can laugh. I'll welcome you to laugh at me if it doesn't fit. We could laugh together. How's that sound? I feel like this could be our official try it on tubing and chat time. So while I'm moving these stitches onto my try it on tubing, I think now is a good time to talk to you guys about just an idea that I had. So it's October. We are all set up for spooky season. And I've already mentioned something that was kind of spooky to me before I did it. And I did it anyway. And that was my helical knitting. I thought it was spooky and I tried it and I'm here to tell you it's not so spooky at all. But it made me think it's the month of October, it's spooky season, and maybe we should all try something spooky this October. So I am officially inviting you to join me in my I'm not going to call this a knit along or an official make along or anything. More just I want to encourage you to try something new or go out of your comfort zone a little bit. So this is what I'm calling Spooky Stitches 2023. And we can use the hashtag spoochy stickers. We can use the hashtag Spooky Stitches 2023. to share some things that maybe spooked you in your knitting and your crafting and whatever you want. And we're going to use October to face those fears a little bit. So this could be something as big as a pattern, like the Ranunculus. Maybe it spooks you a little bit. Are you intimidated by it? Maybe it's time to just face it and cast it on. Maybe it's something like a technique such as helical knitting, or maybe you've always wanted to try cables and you've never had the courage to cast on a cable knit sweater. Maybe you've always just bound off in your standard bind off, but you've always wanted to know what an Italian bind off would look like on your project. And so this time you face the spooky stuff and you do the Italian bind off. It really could be anything. I just think it would be really fun if we could encourage each other to try something that spooks us a little bit. And I think if we're all doing it together, it will feel a lot less daunting. And then if you try it and you liked it or you didn't like it, you can let us know how you felt. And maybe that was someone else's something spooky and it'll help them out a little bit too. So far this month, I've tried my helical knitting and that was my spooky stitches. And I also plan to, I don't know if I'll definitely get it to by the end of the month, but something that's really spooking me is this double knit button band. So that's something that I'm really hoping to get to before the end of the month so that I can share with you something that spooked me and how I felt about it in the end. So this is just me encouraging you to try something a little bit spooky, and hopefully in the end, if nothing else, you'll learn that you just didn't like that, but at least it'll be out of your head. And you know for next time that you didn't enjoy it, but best case scenario is it wasn't so spooky after all. And you've learned something new and you've advanced your knitting and your skills or your sewing or your crocheting or whatever it is that you enjoy doing. But I know that there's something that's spooking you a little bit. And I think that October is a great time to face those fears and let's try something spooky. So if you want to join me in this very unofficial sort of make-along thing, there are no prizes or rewards or anything other than just a really fun community of people encouraging others to try something that they haven't before or that spooks them just a little bit. You can use the hashtag SpookyStitches2023 and follow that hashtag on Instagram, and we can encourage each other to try something new. And I don't know, I think we could all learn something. So I really hope you'll join me in just giving anything a shot, big or small. It doesn't have to be a whole new cast on. It could just be a technique, but I think that'd be really fun if we could use this community for the good. All right, guys, I got this onto that was the official, like, we should sign out. She's on the try it on tubing. She's off the needles. Now we could try this bad boy on. I do have to, I think, oh no, I should be okay with that. I always, when I put on my try it on tubing, I will usually tie a single knot in the tubing so that the stitches don't fall off. So that's how I've done my sleeves. I am going to tie just a little knot right on the end of this body. And let me pop this on for you guys. Okay. Whew. These earrings might have to come off for this. But let's see. I've got her kind of on. I didn't put my arms through the holes because I figured we could just try that together. We might have to untie this. Do I have to untie that? No, that's not so bad. Okay. Whew. The back is like so curling up. There it is. Wowee, friends. Wowee. What do we think? I'd love to say that I'm like not surprised and I knew all along it was gonna fit, but I'm a little surprised. I'm excited though. It feels so good to have it on. And actually this is the first time I'm putting it on kind of next to skin. I'm wearing this, I know this, maybe that was weird. I'm wearing like a skin colored bodysuit. Was that weird? Sorry. But it feels really good. I could tell from this arm, because this try-it-on tubing isn't as tied as tightly as this one, that once I pick up those stitches on the underarm, that's going to be amazing. Like the fit is literally perfect. It's exactly what I wanted. And the yarn is feeling really good. There's a slight, and I mean a slight prickliness just on my bare chest. But this is still unblocked, and I know that my blocked swatch really softened up. So I'm not concerned about that at all. As of right now, I feel like I'm getting a great amount of ease. I've mentioned I love heaps of positive ease. And I'm not kidding. I mean heaps. Like, I just want to wear ponchos. I know that's weird, and I've seen even some people lately and they'll put on a sweater and they'll say, oh my gosh, there's no way I could wear this. It's just massive. And to me, that would be a fitted sweater. So I should make that clear when I say things like, I want this to fit next to skin. I don't mean that I want this to have any negative ease or even no ease at all. I want it to have a few inches of positive ease. And for me, that's next to skin tight. So I might be the minority there, but that is okay with me. The fabric is super, super lightweight. You could see, I mean, that's so drapey and beautiful. And I plan to do the long sleeve version as well as, I haven't really thought about what length I want this to be. That's something I will have to see from trying it on. So mark my words here. I will try this on to determine the length. And I'm assuming that what I will do is try to just get through stockinette in the round as much as possible until I'm about where I think it's going to be ready to do the ribbing at the hem. And then I'll quit, head to the sleeves, which I intend to do the long sleeves. So I was reviewing the pattern this morning and I noticed that the long sleeves in the pattern include a short row section, which I've never done in sleeves at all. So I wanted to know if you've knit the ranunculus, if you've knit a ranunculus with long sleeves, did you include the German short row section? Because so many people have told me to just skip it on the front here. And I know why. I understand that it's really only here for the look of these lace portions. I just wanted to see what the pattern was all about in that respect. So I didn't omit the German short rows in the front just because I wanted to know what the pattern was intended to look like out of sheer curiosity. However, for this sleeves, I do really love, I'm going to post here a photo of probably my favorite version of the ranunculus in the pattern photos where she has those beautiful slightly ballooned sleeves. And I think that is, oh, see, no, thank you. For the look that I'm going for with this top, I do want that slight balloon. So I'm assuming I need to do those German short rows in order to achieve that look. If you have any recommendations for navigating the long sleeve version of the ranunculus, as far as those German short rows, omitting them, doing them, I've never done an I-cord bind off. Oh, spooky. We got spooky stuff going on here. So you let me know what you think about that. It's going to be a little bit before I get there. So let's also say right now, these people who knit this up in 3 days, first of all, they're not knitting the size 10. And second of all, they must be knitting on the larger needles that are actually intended for the pattern. This is not knitting up in a weekend if you're gonna change all the things. And that's a-okay. I really don't mind if a project takes a bit of time. I plan to wear it for the rest of my life. So if it is a few weeks of my life to make it, that's okay. Well worth the investment. So right now, totally loving this. You guys are loving the color. I'm loving the color. I think it kind of goes with our spooky vibes. It's a little poisony. It's a little poisoned apple-y. It's a little bit slimy. And I'm okay with all of that. Am I going to have to knit another one of these? I don't want to be those people. I didn't want to be the person who was going to knit all the ranunculi. Nah. I'm not going to, no. I don't know. We'll see when it's done. Right now, I'm loving it. Something else that I've noticed after just getting to the point in the pattern where I am is the overwhelming pattern that is 15 pages. Once you hit this section for the sleeves, there's a major breakdown by size. So there are like 2 pages of patterns that are completely irrelevant to your size. And that does happen here and there. So I sort of take back what I said about the overwhelming nature of that 15-page pattern back in the beginning. And although I do and I don't, it's still overwhelming when you open the pattern and you see 15 pages and you haven't discovered yet that that's what it is. And I don't always love to print my patterns. I do when I'm really focusing on a chart or just really feel like I need to be right there and have that physical copy. I'll print it. And when I do, I read that baby like a book and I highlight and I mark and I pen and I have fun with that part of it. And then I'll cross out anything that's irrelevant to my size. But this pattern, I am using the digital file to work from, and I'm still marking that in the digital file. But I definitely didn't read all the way through the pattern. I would just read through section by section. And so, yeah, I've just discovered that there's a lot of very size-specific information in the pattern, and that's part of what makes it so long. So if you're a little bit nervous and overwhelmed by the look of the pattern, take a deep breath and go through and highlight for your size, whether that's a physical copy or a digital copy. go through and just identify your size throughout the pattern. And I think you'll feel a lot more comfortable heading into the project. But for now, I'm really happy with where we're at. I think that we're getting the amount of ease that I was hoping for. It's feeling really good, really light. The sleeves are fitting. So I'm excited. She's just going to keep being stockinette in the round for now. It's working. Yay. All right, that's it for the Ranunculus this week. Okay, so next up on the whip list, we have my test knit for Miss Sari Nordland. This is her Leuk pullover. And I started this project. Oh, would you guys be interested in knowing my start dates on these things? I can certainly include it in my introductions for them. Just let me know if that's something that you like to hear. So I started this test knit, I think about a week and a half ago is when I started it. And the body and a sleeve are due on October 18th. So I have been mostly prioritizing this knit, which brings me to another point that I've learned something. Guys, I learn a lot and I like to note what I've learned. So this week, something that I learned was, I think primarily in my knitting journey, I have been a pretty monogamous knitter. If I had more than one project on the needles at a time, it was usually because I was wrapping one up and getting another one started. So this really is the first time that I truly have more than one project on the needles at a time. So to have 3 projects for me is a little bit trickier for me to juggle. And I think I'm going to have a new rule for myself moving forward that I can have 2 garments going at any one time. That's okay, so long as one of them is stockinette and one of them is textured, or at least one of them has to be a stockinette project. And the reason for that is, I like to soak up as much knitting time in a day as I can. So I don't mind having a bulky project that's stockinette in the round to just have in my backpack and go whenever I have a chance to do that. That's completely fine with me. But in the moments when I actually have time to sit down and truly read a pattern or focus and read the chart and knit, I don't have that much time to do that. So when I do, and then I have 2 projects that I have to choose between, it just makes it that much more difficult to finish any one thing. So since this one does have the deadline, that's why it has been prioritized. Also because I am loving the yarn, I'm loving the project, I'm loving the way it's looking and everything. So that's just something that I'm going to try to make a rule with myself from now on, that we can have 2 garments on the needles at any given time, so long as one of them is stockinette, and I will avoid doing 3 at the same time, because the way it feels is just as if I'm knitting so much and yet nothing's actually getting done, and I don't love that feeling. I kind of do enjoy the monogamous knitting something, it's over, on to the next. So those are going to be my very loose rules moving forward. However, for now, we have our 3, and this is our test knit. And the yarn that I'm working this in is so beautiful. They were 2 cones that I got at Webs. I'll just go ahead and list that here. One of them is 100% wool. The other is an alpaca silk. And they're knitting up really beautifully together. So this is looking just so backwards and funny right now, because I have gotten to the point on it's a top-down drop shoulder. So you knit the back flat, you pick up the stitches on the shoulders, and you knit the front. And so I've gotten to the point of the back where they ask you to pick up the stitches for the front panels. So you can kind of see that we have that sort of trapezoid shape going on, and then those stitches are on hold for the body. And now we are working on the front panels. At the moment, I am working on my right side front panel, and we're just kind of moving along until it's time to add in the contrast color again, which is where I left you guys off the last week. That's right. So I was having this dilemma of wanting to use a boucle yarn that I had in my stash from a thrift haul. And it was held single a little bit. By the way, thrifted yarns, I'll specify if I know exactly what it is. However, if I don't, it's because I don't know what it is. So the yarn held single was a little too gappy for my liking in this pattern. And my gosh, the little alpaca. It's very sheddy yarn, I will say that. So the boucle held single was a little too gappy, and when I held it double, it was way too thick. So I was trying to find a mohair that wouldn't drastically change the color of my contrast color and instead would just give me a slight contrast. And I have been referencing the Rebecca Clow cardigan. I'll never remember the name of that, where she used stripes and they are the same color stripes. However, you have the plain wool and then the boucle. And I just loved the look of that when I saw it, and knowing I had this yarn in my stash, I was really excited to try it. So I ordered a mohair. When it came in, which was literally when I was filming last week. Oh my gosh, OC's like playing with her ball right now. Now's not the time, Bob. It came in while I was filming last week, and the color that I ordered was called light beige. I ordered it off of Amazon. It was a Lana Grossa yarn. And the photos, I mean, this is just so telling. When you order yarn online, the photos, they can only say so much about the yarn. Really, I wish that yarn companies would photograph their yarns in all different lighting so that you could get a better idea of what it's actually going to look like when it's in person. I could photograph anything and have it look so differently depending on the lighting, depending on the editing style. So I wish that they would photograph it in natural lighting, studio lighting, dim lighting. It would just make it a lot easier as the consumer. I wound up purchasing 3 different colors of mohair, and none of them were right. They were all incredibly pinky, purpley, gray. And I would have preferred something warmer, but as soon as I got into warmer tones, the shades were getting so dark that I was completely losing my original vision. And that was when I remembered that I had a lace weight sort of loopy boucle style yarn from a thrifting haul. And I was like, wait a second, let me just try and see if that will fill in the gaps and give my contrast enough texture that you can really see. And I think that it worked out, and I was so excited that it did, because I have a lot of this. Look at this thing. This is this really, really cute little lace weight loopy boucle yarn. I don't know what the heck it is. I bought it on this cone. I actually bought this on my birthday yarn tour that I've mentioned I went on this year. Part of that was stopping at Goodwill because I enjoy a good little thrift stop. And I found this entire cone for $5. This weighs so much. There's so much yarn on this thing. So I was really excited to use it, and it's working up exactly how I wanted it to in this pattern. So both of these boucle style yarns were thrifted on cones. I have such an abundance of them, and I do have plans for another project for them later this year. Later this year. But I mean, the contrast color isn't even going to use that much, and I really do have quite an abundance of these yarns. So my issue that I was having before was adding the mohair. Not only was it changing, obviously, the color of the boucle itself, which I liked on its own. I liked the color of it up against my main color yarn. But it also was giving the boucle this hairiness, which the alpaca silk and the wool both have. So it was really losing the contrast and texture that I was hoping for. And you guys, when you see this in person, And I don't know that the close-ups, I mean, you're going to be able to see the contrast in the close-ups, but I believe once this is a finished garment and you can look at as a whole and see these really dense little boucle sections peeking through the lighter, more open wool and alpaca silk sections, it's going to have such a beautiful effect that the contrast in texture is so great. But the color is all the same. And that means for me, maximum wearability and maximum diversity in styling. I think it could be dressed up and dressed down. And I was a little bit concerned, to be honest, about the way that the stripes are placed. I didn't know if having a black stripe across my chest, which was my next thought to do after the boucle. I was just going to do black stripes, but I was nervous that I wouldn't wear that much for fear of it just looking like this mile-long stripe going across my chest that I wasn't exactly excited to have. So I'm glad that this is working out the way that it is. That extra strand of the lace boucle really made the loops in the original boucle stand out, and it's given it this really fun texture that is in such stark contrast to the alpaca silk. So I am loving the way that this is looking. So for now, that's all I really want to say about this. I've mentioned before that it is a test knit, so I'm not going to go too in depth about the pattern until I share my overall thoughts at the end, just to be respectful of it being a test knit itself. So you guys are really excited to see how those stripes turned out, the contrast color, and personally, I'm really happy. I actually don't even think that on camera it's picking up just how different it looks in real life. So once we get a little bit further along and I can actually put this on and show you that depth and contrast, I think you guys are really going to love this too. And I know I do. So we're super excited about this. It also weighs like nothing. I mean, this yarn is phenomenal, if I haven't made that clear already. Still loving the Knitter's Pride Nova Platina needles. These might be the ones that I actually get the full set for. From the Addi Turbos and the Chalgus to these have been my favorites so far. So that's that. Super exciting. I'm so happy that we're going strong on this. And yeah, so October 18th, I mean, we're just a couple of weeks away, which is so crazy. But I have to get the body and a sleeve done by then. We've got knitting to do. So that brings me to what would be my next segment, which would be acquisitions. I don't have any. I bought a lot of yarn this week, but it all was returned because it was all different shades of mohair that didn't work. So other than that, my plans in regards to Cor Shavan, the plan is to just keep making progress. I know that's a lame plan to have, but I do just want to keep making progress on a sleeve, on Miss Ranunculus. We will hopefully, I would love it if I could knit through the body in the next week. That would be really cool to get started on one of the sleeves. We'll see how that goes. It has been reliable stockinette, so it really just depends on how much time I have to sneak in stockinette this week, because any focused knitting time is going to the Leuk sweater. And if I have, well, certainly the plan is to be in the round for the body. Hopefully we can make a good dent in that so that the next week we'll have a sleeve. I don't know. That's going to be a tricky one. I mean, just really make as much progress as possible. And that is really where we are at on the whips and the plans. Speaking of plans, do any of you have plans to go to Rhinebeck this year? I have had a few of you asking me, and TBD. I have to work that weekend, so I'm hoping to squeeze in a visit. However, I really won't know until that weekend. So I would love to know if you guys are going. If you are, maybe what day are you going? And if you've been before, if you have any tips for us, that would be great. I've never been. However, I have been to the Dutchess County Fairgrounds, which is where the festival is held. I go there with my family for the Dutchess County Fair every year. So I'm familiar with the area and I would love to go and get a different experience, but certainly if not this year, then definitely next year. But please let me know if you guys are planning to go. Other than that, my goodness, I don't know how it's going to be wearing that sweater. The alpaca is just living inside of my nose now. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the new background today. Perhaps you've noticed who I am lovingly calling the Tin Sisters. We have Miss Ellie Tin. she's winding balls back there, and Miss Stella Tin, who's maybe working on a little project down here. My inner preschool teacher is definitely showing right now with my crafty background. I'd love to have a little bit of fun behind me for the different changes in seasons. It makes it more exciting for me. Hopefully it makes it a little bit more exciting for you. And that's pretty much all I've got this week, you guys. Let us connect on Instagram at AKA Nora Knits, and we're going to use that hashtag Spooky Stitches 2023 to share all of those things that you're going to try this month that maybe spook you just a little bit. I have plenty of things that are spooking me, so I'll certainly be sharing there too. If you enjoyed this episode today, I would love it so much if you would subscribe. You can like the video, and more than anything, please say hi down in the comments. Let me know what you're working on. Let me know if anything that I said today has resonated with you, and certainly come hang out with us on Instagram too. We're building a really, really great community. You guys are so incredible. And I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been here since episode 1 and who has liked and subscribed. You know who you are, and you know that I'm extremely grateful. So yeah, that's all we've got today. Big ol' thanks for watching, and I'm going to see you next week for another podcast episode. Saturday mornings, 9:30 a.m. I'll be here for you. Okay, guys, big ol' thanks for watching. That's it. Okay, bye.